Hey everyone, good afternoon. This is going to be an in-depth look into the first month of the MLB and who's the MVP, Cy Young, most improved, and most disappointing player on our 30 teams so far. So, we're going to start going alphabetical order. The Diamondbacks, their MVP so far is pretty predictable. Paul Goldschmidt. Their Cy Young is Patrick Corbin. He's been on fire this year. He is leading the Diamondbacks with a 2.25 ERA and a .75 WHIP and only a 1.65 opponent batting average. Most improved is Nick Ahmed. He has like above a 260 average this year. When I was there watching the D-back series, he's a pretty good player, good defender, good. If he can get his offense going, he's definitely a very valuable guy to have on your squad. And then most disappointing is Robbie Ray. Robbie Ray's had a very up and down start to this season. Not that many great starts, but you expect a guy of his caliber to bounce back. It's only the first month of the season, so it's not like the most disappointing is going to be there at the end for most teams. MVP for the Braves is without a doubt, I agree with this, Ozzie Albies. The Cy Young is definitely Mike Foltynewicz, too. He's had a great start to this year. Kind of a similar pitcher that just has great stuff with speed to Vince, but he's figured it out. He's starting to really figure it out. While Benny's had, for the Phillies, 3 good starts this year and 3 bad ones, so he still has the inconsistency. Then you have Dansby Swanson's most improved. I agree with that. And then the most disappointing is definitely Julio Teheran. He has just not been good this year. And then the Cubs, you got Baez as MVP, Kyle Hendricks as Cy Young, Schwarber's most improved, and Yu Darvish, who's been very disappointing this year so far, as most disappointing. Most disappointing for the Reds would be Billy Hamilton because he has such the tools and a lot of stuff to be a great major league player. He's great at defense. He's so fast, but he just can't get on base enough. That's why he's so disappointing. Homer Bailey's the most improved. He's actually having a very solid season so far and starting to hopefully live up to some of the value and salary he has. Awful contract by that GM. Cy Young is definitely Iglesias, and then MVP is none other than Joey Votto. Rockies is Arenado MVP, Cy Young, Chad Batiste, which is great to see, because as we know, he's not the Jameson Taillon's one of the 2 that came back from cancer last year. Chad Batiste is the other, and both of those guys are having great seasons so far. Trevor Story is most improved, with the most disappointing being Ian Desmond. So you have the MVP of the Dodgers is Grandal, Cy Young is Kirsch, most improved is Ryu, and disappointing is Puig. Now to the first team in the Phillies division, the NL East. The MVP is Brian Anderson so far. Their young, not shortstop, the young third baseman. He's doing very well, and he definitely has shown signs in some of the games I've watched against the Marlins that he can be a very good major league player. Jarlin Garcia is the Cy Young so far, started the season great. He's also the most improved. And then Lewis Brinson is the most disappointing so far because he has games mixed in where he does great, but then he just goes on huge slumps. And then for Brewers, Travis Shaw MVP, Josh Hader Cy Young, Junior Guerra most improved, and Domingo Santana is most disappointing. I don't think Santana will be there at all at the end of the season. I think once it gets warmer, excuse me, and we have better weather, he will start heating up, and he will definitely not be a most disappointing. For the Mets, you got Asdrubal Cabrera as MVP, Jacob deGrom as Cy Young, most improved is Lagares, and most disappointing is definitely Matt Harvey. For the Phillies, I think we know who our MVP would be. That is Rhys Hoskins. The Cy Young is Aaron Nola so far. That, I'm sure some people thought between Jake and Knowles, but Knowles is the younger, flashier guy at this point, where he could probably extend a little bit longer. Jake could finish. I could see Jake finishing with a mid-2s ERA to a high 3, but Knowles will probably be even a little bit lower than that. I think he's going to have a great season this year, where he has a mid-2 lower, and definitely in contention for the Cy Young. And then we have our most improved has been Nick Pivetta. He's had a couple starts. He hasn't gone deep in the game, But even those starts, like some of the games, Vinny hasn't gone deep in the games where, like yesterday, where he got pounded and we were down by like 6. Whereas Nick, he keeps you down by like 3 or 4 still. He just doesn't go deep enough into the game. And the one game he could have probably went the extra inning to get the win, but we just chose not to. So that also factors in at times. Pittsburgh, their MVP is not who you would expect. It's Francisco Cervelli so far. Their Cy Young is also Trevor Williams. And that's not because Tyone's doing bad. That's just because Trevor Williams has come out and balled. And then most improved is Marte, with the disappointing being Josh Bell. The MVP of the Padres is Villanueva, with Joey Lucchesi being the Cy Young. Tyson Ross being the improved. Emmanuel Margot disappointing so far. Cy Young for the Giants is Cueto. Belt MVP. Cueto most improved as well. McCutcheon's been disappointing. Tommy Pham, a kid that a lot of people liked and thought would break out really this year, is doing so. He's the MVP so far. The Cardinals this season was Martinez being the Cy Young, and the most improved being Bud Norris, former starter who's made a career for himself out of the pen very well so far. Colton Wong has been the most disappointing, obviously for the MVP for the Nats, our other division team. You got Harper, Cy Young, Scherzer, Doolittle most improved, and then Zim's been pretty disappointing so far. So that has been a look into the players on the teams that have been doing great so far in the first month of the season, and the ones that definitely need to show some step up and improvement. For the Phillies, Carlos Santana has been nipped in the butt by a little bit of bad luck. He has hit some balls hard and just got out. Also, he has a good amount of walks. So having someone for him over a guy like Brinson that's struggling this year, that's not even getting on base that much, I would prefer having a guy like Santana. Because on the Phillies, if you get on base, we do have good offensive nights, just for some reason not against Atlanta, and who were only 3-6 against this year. So I think that will turn around. The same goes for Zim. I don't watch a lot of Nationals games, obviously, but seeing highlights and etc., I see games that Zim hits it pretty hard, and he just finds outs. The other thing is Ryan Zimmerman, will get going, I think. He's just too good of a hitter, and he really had a huge bounce back year last year. I don't think he's going to have that huge of a year this year, but I think he's going to have a very productive year once all is said and done, and he'll start heating up as it heats up. So that is just my 2 cents on a couple of the guys they put in the disappointing category. I also think if Matt Harvey can embrace going to the pen and get rid of the immaturity he's kind of showing right now, he could get his career to turn around and potentially be a starter again on a different team probably, if he can show he's figuring out his control and stuff in the pen. Another team that's not like in a great position this year, but that wants to get guys that might take a big jump in their stats and not be that expensive because of where their careers are right now, might want a guy like that to try to start him again. So these are guys that I think will get going. Matt Harvey's the biggest risk pick and the wild card pick out of my picks. But I think if he can embrace being in the pen and stop complaining, he will be fine, and he will possibly even be able to move back to being a starter. I just don't think it'll be on the Mets, because the Mets have other guys, and I think at a point there's going to be other guys doing good enough where you just say, move on, keep him in the pen, or if he wants to be traded, maybe we trade him to a team that actually wants to start him. Watch, this has been my sense on the MLB in the first month of the season. Some of the people I agreed with and stuck with the article I read. Some of the people I picked a few other guys. So I just think every few months I'll probably do a video on looking into who's hot in the MLB and who's not. This has been Sports Fanatic News. I'm Joe Boric. Peace.